Zach Stafford of The Guardian, based in Chicago, writes, "It's time to do away with the concept of manhood altogether. Quote, men are pretty terrible people. They commit significantly more violent crimes, robberies, and assaults each year than women do, according to the Department of Justice. They are more likely to show anger in the workplace and be rewarded for it, while women are affected negatively for the same behaviors. They even take up too much space on public transportation when manspreading. I could keep going. Men probably dominate all these terrible statistics because, now and throughout history, they've dominated the world. But that doesn't give them a pass. They are still to blame even if they don't know better, and it's high time their dominant position, their entitled ignorance, was questioned and dismantled." Close quote. Well, for starters, his whole rant is racist, by factors ranging from 300% to over 1,000% on a per capita basis. Most violence is committed by black men. That's in the United States. So any stereotype that men commit most of the violent crime is based on black men, and that instantly makes the stereotype suspect. And rightfully so. On a per capita basis, black men engage in criminally violent behavior at a rate of about 2 per 10,000. So the stereotype is false, which makes it racist. Moreover, Department of Justice statistics are skewed because of profiling. The police are less likely to arrest women for the same crimes, and when women are arrested, they are more likely to get off or receive lighter sentences for the same crimes as men. On the issue of anger, women are just as likely as men to get angry, but they are more likely to express it with passive-aggressive behavior. They can, however, also behave violently. More on that in a moment. On the subject of manspreading, the whole issue ignores that women are more likely than men to put purses and backpacks in the seat next to them, thereby taking up even more room, which makes this just one more example of third and fourth wave feminists complaining for the sake of negatively stereotyping men. Their sole purpose is to promote misandry and hatred of men. Stafford then complains about the inability of many men to detail the historical contributions made by women. Yet, if you check out other sources, you can find plenty of examples of both women and men demonstrating ignorance about all kinds of historical things, like, for example, the Declaration of Independence. Moreover, he ignores that most of history focuses on people who are wealthy or politically powerful. For example, in Rachel Weisz's outstanding portrayal of Hypatia of Alexandria, we see that the vast majority of people there were ignored by history, including the men. When President Lincoln said, quote, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here," close quote, he was perhaps unintentionally observing how history will treat the vast majority of all of us. Well, it's true that historians have generally overlooked the contributions of women. It should not be ignored that the most noteworthy contributions, like the light bulb, electric generators, trains, planes, and automobiles, were all made by men. And as an American Indian, I have little sympathy for the indignation of white middle and upper middle class women or politically correct African American neoliberals who get indignant over this, when most of the history of North and South America is utterly ignored to the extent that everybody is still taught that democracy was invented in Athens, where only the aristocrats were allowed to vote, despite that true democracy had been practiced in North America for at least as long, if not longer. And by true democracy, I mean every man and woman got a vote. Next, he prattles on about violence against women, utterly ignoring that most of domestic violence, including child abuse, elder abuse, and, yes, intimate partner violence, is committed by women. This is not to say that male violence against women is not a problem, but that the whole thing has been politicized and blown out of proportion to blame and shame to control men, and it's all based on a lie. Then he quotes Michael Kimmel, quote, "Violence is often the single most evident marker of manhood," sociologist Michael Kimmel wrote in his 1994 essay, Masculinity as Homophobia. "It's the willingness to fight, the desire to fight," close quote. I met Michael Kimmel on a talk show which he described in one of his books and also in an article for CNN as well known. He lied. It was the Bertice Berry Show, which lasted less than 2 years. The producer of that show more or less set me up. I was there to represent white men, which was awkward given that I'm a member of the Cowlitz Indian tribe. Nonetheless, I did my best, but the hostility from the predominantly black audience was palpable, and Jill Nelson, an African-American writer for the Washington Post who was also there, was among the most racist people I've ever met, at least based on the couple of hours that I spent with her. Kimmel interviews anybody but men like me to pass himself off as an expert about people like me. A couple of years ago, I had a brief email conversation with him, which he initiated. He also terminated the conversation because I treated him cordially. Maybe it's an Indian thing, but I'm not in the habit of treating people I'm talking to with scorn or disrespect. And evidently he was hoping I would treat him disrespectfully because he accused me of being disingenuous for being cordial and respectful. I still have our email conversation in my archives, and under no circumstances do I consider him a credible source. On the subject of murder, Stafford implied that men murder women at a much higher rate than the other way around. Yet, men are victims of murder at a much, much higher rate, and the murder rates by sex of victim and perpetrator ignore the number of murders committed by men on behalf of women. It's called agency violence. Moreover, men die from workplace violence, workplace accidents, and from all other causes at a much higher rate than women. All other causes except for, of course, aging. Yet the mainstream still treats women like they are the primary victims. Today, third and fourth wave feminists demand nonsense like, "Tell men don't rape," which is precisely the opposite of what second wave feminists demanded. No, second wave feminists didn't say men should be told to rape, but that men should stop protecting women because it was paternalistic and sexist. Eventually, in response to second-wave feminists, men started backing off, at which point feminists of all stripes began stereotyping all men as violent and rapists based on the behavior of a tiny fraction of men. While Mary Koss and others claim that between 1 in 5 and 1 in 3 women will be victims of rape or sexual assault in their lifetime, the true statistic is closer to 1 in 50. Continuing his assault on masculinity, Stafford writes, quote, "Men will respond so quickly, even violently, when they feel their manhood is being questioned," close quote. Is this the result of 50 years of feminist indoctrination? Certainly, men from previous generations often responded violently to questions about their manhood, but I'm a member of the baby boom generation, and for my generation, questioning another's manhood was considered a joke. It was part of camaraderie, kidding with each other. Now, I don't live in a boomer bubble, and I've seen and heard plenty of Gen Xers and millennials cracking jokes about manhood in the same way. So I have to wonder if Stafford's observations have more to do with the kind of men he hangs out with, rather than with any universal truth about Western men of the modern age. Regardless, we can only speculate what he will eventually have to say about MGTOW, as we are among the most masculine. That's all for now. Check out the other videos, subscribe to the channel. For the Backlash at Backlash.com, my name is Rod Van Mecklin.